In November 2019, Flying Wild Hog, the developers of Evil West, were working on 3 video games. Shadow Warrior 3 that was published by Devolver Digital, Evil West that is published by Focus Entertainment, and Space Punks published by Jagex. Now, the reason why I bring up these 3 games pretty much kind of paints the picture for how this review is going to go. They were also trying to release Trek to Yomi back in 2022. So essentially, Wild Hog was on this gas pedal at trying to get most of their IPs to gain heavy traction during a small window time. I'll explain that a little bit later. It is a bit weird to see all the games being released at the same time and more than likely following the same developmental process, so you can imagine the disasters that can follow with poor developmental periods. Which brings me to take a deeper look into why Evil West launched and received very mixed reviews, and what does this AA game looks to achieve. Now let's time travel back a little bit. Let's go back 4 years ago. At the Game Awards 2020, the game for Evil West was officially announced for release. Now, I remember this being announced and I was like, yo, this is gonna be amazing. This is gonna be great. I actually enjoyed the little presentation, like the trailer was bumping, the vampires and the blood and all that. Like, I was ecstatic. By the time of 2022, the team also retired their Roadhog engine. So the way how their other previous games look, it was following the Roadhog engine, and now in favor of Evil West, they have turned to more of an Unreal Engine style for their games. The reason why I bring you guys this bit of information regarding developmenting period of Evil West makes this review make a little bit more sense. Like I said already, it already simply shows why the game received mixed reviews during its overall launch period. My goal today is to see if Evil West was really that bad and to give it my overall review on this AA game. The game was initially set to be released September 20th, 2022 for PC, PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, and X and S, but this was later delayed to November 20th of 2022. So what exactly is Evil West? Evil West is a third-person shooter from Flying Wild Hog that throws you headfirst into a vampire hunting time. We take control of Jesse Rentier, one of the last agents in a monster hunting institute. I have quite a lot to say about Mr. Jesse and the rest of the cast himself. I'll save a little bit of that towards a little bit later in this review, but Evil West is one of my favorites when it comes to this cowboy games. Like, the idea where there feels like there's something like out of the Evil Dead movie franchise when the main character actually is fighting off hordes of demons, and Evil West stars Jesse Rentier, the main character who is fighting off hordes of vampires, or as the game world calls them, ticks. Essentially, America has been fighting off the Sanguisage, which is the 5-star word way of saying vampires. Essentially, they're vampires. But thanks to the building of Rentier Institute, we found a way of fighting back the vampiric horde. Now, Evil West is consist of 16 missions. Man, about 10 to 15 hours long. I think I spent 11 or so hours in this. But this brings the best blend of the Wild West and the supernatural. Jesse Rentier is equipped with an electric gauntlet his father created and a plethora amount of weapons that was built by the Institute. Your job overall is to stop the vampire princess Felicity as she shoots for overall revenge on humanity to bring on the new age of vampires. With that being said, I want to go over and talk about the overall gameplay, the overview of what you can expect during your time in Evil West. In my opinion, I feel the game shines the brightest is in its combat. Borrowing heavy inspiration from games like Devil May Cry and God of War, Evil West offers a satisfying mix of firearms and brutal melee attacks. You'll juggle lightning-infused punches from your gauntlet with revolver blasts and rifle shots, all while overall building up your super meter for a devastating burst of overall power. There are enemy types. Variety is quite decent, especially in each mission you come across. Like every time you go in a fighting sequence, the enemy types, you know, they're kind of sprinkling around to many different ones as you progress. And then like once you meet all of the types, essentially they all kind of like cover each own strength and weakness to exploit, making sure to keep you very well on your toes, as the game will definitely punish you for any mishaps. The game's combo system was overall inspired by the DMC series, while that third-person perspective melee combat was definitely inspired by 2018's God of War. Combat is pretty fun overall, especially as you progress the game. You'll get more guns and gadgets to fight against the vampires, or as Rentier and the rest of their crew will call them, ticks. Just like in God of War, playing as Kratos, you can chain combos, use all of the new weapon types, and have them add to your combos. Jesse has something quite similar, alternating from his melee gauntlets, his revolver, the marksman rifle, and the more tools that he has. When you do get a bit further in the game, by the time Jesse gets his gauntlet upgraded by Virgil, which is the engineer for the Institute, you can now use a supercharged mode, which pretty much makes Jesse a full-blown god, being able to move literally like lightning and deal stupid amounts of damage, literally saving me on multiple occasions when they throw in so many of the higher tier like monsters, and it just pretty much gives me that vibe when Kratos just pulls out the Olympus blade. Like when he brings that blade out, you already know it is go time. It's your time to bring out the ass whipping. But during Jesse's god mode, it feels very smooth and fun to play with it actually. And I think, in my opinion, the combat is some of the best in this game, and I think the combat overall carries this game, since the story is kind of mid, to be honest, in which I will actually get to that later. I have quite a lot to talk about the story. The game also does try to introduce finisher attacks. So when you defeat an enemy, something quite very similar to how Kratos finishes his enemies, as soon as you see that circle prompt appear over the head, it is go time. You get the smashing. But in Evil West, they just glow a yellow hue to indicate that it's finishing time. Now, each battle sequence has a good level of difficulty, especially dealing with the later game enemies, as some ticks' strengths and weaknesses, like I said, cover each other, therefore making you really have to think. Now, I will say one of the things I've noticed during my time playing is each mission feels very repetitive, like you're walking in a linear designed world and you have to go from point A to point B, go across whatever puzzle you come across, and a little bit very tiny baby amounts of exploration. Then you fight enemies and it's kind of rinse and repeat. Pull up to the mission, travel forward, fight enemies, and repeat. The boss fights are just like pretty much the 2018 God of War. The way the pacing of each fight goes, the way it's overall set up, it just feels like I'm looking at those type of games. It definitely feels like you're running around as Kratos in Asgard. As this review go on, you will notice that there are so many similarities to the DMC and God of War inspirations. They really weren't kidding about that when it comes to making Evil West. Now, I will say the core gameplay loop revolves around combat. There is a sprinkle of exploration on the side. Levels are linear, like I said earlier. There are opportunities to veer off the beaten path to find collectibles and lore entries that try to flesh out the world lore overall a tad bit more, and some help fill the lore of the given area that you're in itself, as I have no issue with games that fill out their lore within their item descriptions or some form of like little notes you pick up, like kind of like that Resident Evil, like you pick up the notes, so on and so forth, so you can learn about like how the zombies came about, how the virus is made. And when you're playing through Evil West, the little lore pieces kind of explain how the lore is going, like how stuff started back years ago, how the war started, and some of the key people of interest as well what's going through their mind space regarding the given conflict that we're currently having. But with Evil West being a linear story driven action game, I would expect more from the game in its initial story, and use some small lore bits in your collectibles, but as you play through the game, the story has definitely struggled during that developmental process, which is one of the reasons I believe something had to have suffered during the dev time due to the fact of them trying to get the multiple games to release in the same year, and more than likely all of those games shared a similar developmental time. But going back to the exploration side of Evil West is that the simple environment puzzles add a touch of variety to the world, giving it truly that God of War vibe, but definitely don't come in expecting a Metroidvania verticality and that horizontal level of interconnectedness or any massive open world maps or anything of that nature. This is nothing of that. Even the small little bit of adventuring won't really get you too far. Since the game is linear based, the story does not help much for that exploration. The exploration of these maps lets player pretty much go off on different paths, which helps you find those collectibles in those lore pieces that help explain the overall background story. But I do want to talk about that some of them, it does warrant you to go off of those unbeaten paths because of the chests that always contain golds or perk points or anything of that nature, which, by the way, gold is the main currency that will help you upgrade Jesse. As you get into higher levels, the level design gets a bit more complex, but still keep into that linear style. But going deeper onto the gold currency, hence why it warrants you to actually explore instead of just going from point A to point B, because this allows Jesse to further upgrade. What players can expect is like the multiple different skill trees. There's your perks and then there's your upgrades. You can allocate points by using the game's currency of gold, as well as getting the perk points that are in the chests that you get throughout the levels, which can help you further improve your perk tree. Within the perks, you'll be upgrading Rentier's electric gauntlet and himself applying passive or active skills to help improve his overall combat. And you can upgrade his guns and gadgets to have them perform different abilities, or just overall upgrading the quality of how they're used in your playstyle. You can also customize Jesse by obtaining skins and chests as well throughout the multiple story levels. But speaking of story, let's dive a bit deeper into why I feel like the story is the outright biggest downfall of this game and was just very bad. The narrative is by far the weakest link of Evil West. The story is definitely lacking in some aspects, especially with it being set in a cowboy versus vampire set piece. Some parts of the story that should have been more emotional was kind of underdelivered. It's hard to truly feel what Jesse is feeling due to the story not really help convey any emotions or having Jesse really let the emotions out. Especially as you get further in the game and the vampires being a step ahead of the player every which way, sometimes it's hard to really feel Jesse on the emotional side, and the way the game ends feels like there should be a sequel, like the Vampire War isn't fully done yet, even though defeating the final boss, the person you've been chasing the entire game, thinking killing them and would help end the war, but no. As being a Wild Wild West based story, you can't of course have a protagonist without his partner in crime. That's his good friend Edgar Gravenor. I love the witty banter between Edgar and Jesse when they're both on screen. They always give me to laugh just a good couple of times, just sometimes with that banter. These two are absolutely a wholesome duo, with Edgar being that brother to Jesse and help keep him in line. You can feel that strong bond the two of these have, especially later on when Edgar thinks Jesse died and he goes on an absolute warpath to avenge him. I actually find that really wholesome, showing Edgar really cares for Jesse way more than just being field agents and being the person that's assigned to take care of William's son. Jesse's personality can be witty at times, but when situations call for more of him to be more sad and to actually show his emotions a bit, but it kind of falls flat. Like, yes, I get it, he has this tough exterior, this very tough wall up, or somehow or how some of the more serious beats, the characters all have like these weird screaming matches, and it feels like there's no true soul to these high emotional points. There is one person I do want to talk about, and and by far, in my opinion, acting as the game's second antagonist that is different from how the story's main core villains. Let's introduce Mr. Secretary Harrow. Now, Secretary Harrow is pretty much that manager that likes to micromanage and just be a dick to all of their employees. His entire character arc finishes by the time the game ends, and about the time the crew finally put him in his place, as it felt like he cared more about his own pockets than actually helping end the war. And of course, having some missions that felt very out of place, like they shouldn't be there, and making Jesse go do this stuff instead of, you know, chasing after Felicity, the main vampire chick we've been trying to chase down this entire game. He absolutely abuses them, like curse at them, kind of pushes his power a little too much, and just be absolutely disrespectful to the main cast. Like, the entire time he was on screen, I wanted to just reach through my monitor, choke him myself. The story from beginning to end feels very predictable. It lacks the emotion it really failed to bring me to enjoying, and it's sad because with linear games, with lack of any open world aspects, you would expect some real good story, similar to God of War, Last of Us, Kingdom Hearts, and so on and so forth. Evil West just drops the ball heavy in that story department. But I have one thing I do want to go over that outright disappointed me the most during my time playing, which is the overall performance of Evil West. Evil West is a good looking game overall, with detailed environments that reflect the decaying world. Enemy designs are quite grotesque and appropriately creepy. However, the game isn't without its technical hiccups. Visual bugs and occasional performance stutters can take you out of the experience. Visual bugs, especially in the snowier levels. As you walk across the map, you will see mountains of snow rise up, some bits of the level being like unfinished, in a sense like some areas were just terribly rendered. The background trees violently shake. Like, I experienced so many different bugs on my playthrough. Even then, the level designs look really great. Overall fits in the story to help show how severe each area changed the further we go into the story, showing how the vampires are just destroying the different areas that are in the state while we're on this war. The game has a different way of saving your progress, so essentially the game is running on a constant autosave and saves after cutscenes. When you go to try to head to the menu, you can see where your last save was. This absolutely tripped me up because one day I stayed up too late and wanted some EP time, and I wanted to save, and I'm like, where is the save button now? Me frantically searching online because I thought I wasn't paying attention to the game when they explained how to save the game. Come to find out, it just saves after every cutscenes, and I'm just like, that would have been better to actually just give us a save in the main menu, or there's actual save points. And I felt like a lot of things were just out of place. It just didn't make sense, which sets me up into talking about my overall verdict. Evil West is a fun but flawed Wild Wild West game that attempts to offer players a mix of blend of Devil May Cry and God of War combo system in the overall level design. But with a repetitive nature to each level and lack of story, it's right there alone, which makes Evil West a flop. While the story and exploration are pretty forgettable, they don't detract from the core gameplay loop. Once you beat the game, there is a new game plus, but even then you will essentially be going for just the love of the combat, not to do anything else. So replayability is a bit there, but it doesn't win too many awards from me. The combat is excellent, offering a deep well of moves and abilities to master and trying to really get them combos to intertwine with your style of play. Which brings me to my first question at the start of this review. Was Evil West really that bad? I wouldn't say it's complete dog shit, but I wouldn't say that this game deserves Game of the Year, you know? It's a mediocre Western supernatural game, because if you're looking for a B-movie style action game with over-the-top violence and a sprinkle of dark humor, or if you can get past not having a deep narrative or expansive world to explore, but you do enjoy a very fun visceral combat with plenty of blood and gore, with a nice MSRP rating price of $50, then hey, I feel like the game would be right for you. But I actually want to know what you guys think about Evil West. Did you play it during the launch? And I want to hear your thoughts on any of the story bits or any of the combat. Like, what did you enjoy or what did not enjoy? I want to know in the comment section below. Make sure to subscribe to me for more gaming reviews and like the episode for more. As always, stay safe out there. And it's been your host, KSDTV, here at Chaotic Inc., signing out. Peace.